How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Light Lamp Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Hollahan, and today we have a very special guest joining us on the podcast, Eric Lindros. Eric is a Hockey Hall of Famer, a Hart Trophy winner, an Olympic gold medalist, a six-time All-Star, and captained the Philadelphia Flyers from 1994 to 2000. So without further introduction, Eric, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. I'll start off by saying thank you so much for doing this. When I first started the podcast back in November, I could never, fathom having an NHL legend like you on first thing. But yeah, in the first year. So that's awesome. I really appreciate it.
Well, no problem at all. I actually, so our mutual friend, Owen, who you interviewed, I think just recently, the last couple of weeks.
Yes,
he got drafted by Barry.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he's a buddy of mine, and Owen gave me a shout and said you were looking to do something, and anytime someone as brave as you that wants to do, have a podcast, be creative, handle questions, and go at it, I think it's great. I'm hats off to you for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. So we'll hop right in. So we know that you were a power forward back in your playing days, which is unfortunately a little less popular in comparison to the 90s, as I mentioned. So now there probably won't be another you, but in the NHL today, in your opinion, who do you think is the most like you and why? Whether you want to compare playing style, mentality, or...
Well, it's a bit tricky because of the rule changes, I think is what you're alluding to, and the way that the game is played now. The physicality, I don't think ever, it really starts to kick in playoff time. I think you start to see it now, and even still, it's maybe not even at the level that it used to be during a heated regular season game in the 90s. So I think that's a tricky one. I don't know. Comparisons are tough and sometimes unfair, and I don't know. I had a great time playing. I did enjoy the physicality of it. If I could look back and think of changing something, I think I would have toned it down about 25%. But apart from that, no, I had a lot of fun.
All right, love it. So unfortunately, over the course of your career, you've dealt with numerous concussions and injuries. So how do you think your career would have changed if you hadn't been so prone to injuries? Maybe for the better, for the worse?
Well, it's hard to score when you're not in the lineup. And my first year, I only got in 61 games. I had a tough time out of the gate, and then even still, I would always end up missing 8, 10, 12, and then later on, more in terms of numbers per year. And it's just hard to get back. It's hard to keep that consistency going, because once you're away from the game and you're not playing in it, you can practice all you want, but it's a whole different level when you're back in a regular season game or a playoff game, and it takes a little while to get caught back up. So no, I really wish that the body would have held up a little bit better, but listen, it is what it is. The cards were dealt, and you play your hand, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. So as you obviously know, and most of my listeners know, you were the unanimous first overall pick in the 1991 draft. You obviously dealt with a lot of pressure, especially after the trade requests that came in from you from the Rangers and the Flyers afterwards. But an advantage that you had is that you didn't have to deal with any, social media pressure. So
Right.
This leads me to my next question. With all the social media that exists in this day and age, what advice would you give to someone like Connor Bedard, who's kind of someone that's in the spot you were 32 years ago, to deal with the pressure?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, I mean, getting back to, I don't think you give anybody direct advice anymore. I think that a lot of the kids figure it out on their own. You figure it out through mistakes, really, to be honest with you. There's lots of guidance for these people. They go through the Players Association gets to the rookies real early and helps them out with this type of thing. But you're right. We didn't have camera phones. We didn't have video clips, being taken while you're out and about. It was a whole different environment, and it raises the popularity of hockey in some eyes, and it makes it a whole lot tougher to be a hockey player, on the flip side of things. So it's give and take, but yeah, I mean, boys will be boys, and we'd like to have fun. It's just you got to really watch yourself when you're when you're out and about.
So obviously, when you first started playing, the NHL has changed a lot, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. So I just kind
Hmm.
of want to get your opinion of the NHL today compared to the 90s. Like, do you think that some rules should be changed, or what changes with maybe style of play or equipment like should be different, or you think it's good that some things change? Like, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you change a rule and then you put limitations on the size of goaltending equipment, which I think is a big one. The rules are there. It's one thing to have rules. It's another thing to enforce them and to spend the money to show up when unexpected to measure equipment, right before a game, or in the afternoon prior to the guys arriving to the rink. All these things. That's a big one. If you're gonna have a rule, enforce it. I'd look at the two-line pass rule, and I don't know. I mean, it puts a lot of heat on the defensemen when they turn and go. That'd be one rule that I might think about reversing. I think the players can skate fast enough where I don't think by putting the two-line pass rule back into effect that you're gonna, it's gonna hurt the scoring of the game by any extent. I think the players are so good. They're so talented. I think from a structural standpoint, it's amazing to see these teams, the new teams that come into the league, have the ability to be playoff contenders so quickly in their existence. Vegas going to the quarters or semis now. It was not like that at all. Earlier, the Kraken were right there. It was to protect a certain amount of players, but also leave a bunch unprotected. It just adds to the parity of it, which is fantastic. So to be a fan now is a great time. Anybody's got a shot at it, and within 3 or 4 years, a lot of things can go up and go down, and it makes for an exciting game. No one knows really what's going to happen, right? And that's the cool part.
Yeah, especially tracking back to Vegas. Even in their first year, they came the finals and they gave Washington a run for their money. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
no,
that
it's incredible what can happen, right? You get a group of guys together. They call themselves the Misfits. They're kind of they show up in Vegas, kind of feeling, that they were shipped away, and they got a chip on their shoulder. They're pissed off, and they want to go to prove to the world that they're good hockey players, and they did that. They really did that. They drafted well in that expansion draft. They got great goaltending. A credit to them. Their franchise just didn't slowly get better. It just leaped. Like it was terrific.
yeah, that's exactly. So you've had the opportunity to play in the Olympics on three different occasions in your career in 1992, 96, and 2002. So what do you think has been the difference between your first Olympic Games in 92 and compared to your last in '02? The biggest difference.
The biggest difference was the spotlight. In '92, they didn't stop the NHL regular season and ship the boys off like they did in '98 and 2002. So that in itself was a big change. So we were made up of primarily, they called us amateurs. But I still, Sean Burke was on that team, Joey Juneau, Kevin Dahl. There's a bunch of Dan Ratushny. There's a bunch of really good players on that team, but it certainly, those are names that you'll listen to. But if I say, Lemieux and, and Sakic, and it's a different group, right? So that part I think is great. You get the best of the best together and let them go at it for and those tournaments are hard to win because anything can happen. It's not a best of 7 game series where you can make adjustments after game 1, after game 2, so on and so forth. You got to really be prepared and have your team rolling at the right time when this all takes place, because it's one and done. You got one shot at it each time you get out there. So once you get through the preliminary round. But no, it's exciting. And yeah, we had great success in '02, and we came up against Dominik Hasek in '98. And I thought we had the best team in the tournament, but we didn't win because Dominik was the best goalie.
All right. So the other day I was reading out of the Hockey Hall of Fame book of true stories written by Eric Zweig. I don't know if that's how you say that name, last name, but
Yeah.
I don't know how many of my listeners actually know this, or just many people at all. But you were actually a pretty good baseball player. You batted a 400 average in high school, along with landing a tryout as the third baseman with the Toronto Blue Jays. You even had a baseball card that was featured in the 1990 score set. So this kind of leads me to my next question. What were
Yeah.
some of the hardest challenges of being kind of a Bo Jackson kind of guy playing two sports? And do you think if you had stuck with baseball, that you would have made a career out of it?
Okay. Well, first of all, I was nowhere near what Bo did in in baseball
Well,
and
no,
football.
but like I,
But
I don't
yeah.
have.
So I played, our hockey season came and went. And then after that, my parents were just, they were sick and tired of driving me. So I was off to the local house league baseball. And I didn't play rep ball growing up. I was just good at house league ball, and never was really part of an all-star team until I got to high school and junior. I was at Henry Street High School, and we had a really good group of guys that could play ball. And after we were done with the Memorial Cup, a bunch of us from the Generals, I think there was 3 or 4 of us, joined the baseball team. And we had some really good guys to learn from. My good buddy Jeff Hardy is an excellent baseball player. He had a scholarship down to the States. Um, he was one of our pitchers. We had a lot of it has to do with coaching, right? If you have really good coaching, it will, the kid still has to play. The kid still has to do what they need to do and perform and really love it and work hard and want to get better. But without good coaching and without the fine tuning of things, it's hard to get over the hump. So I love baseball. I had a great time with it. It's completely different than hockey. I got down to spring training and I was there prior to the big boys showing up, but there were still, there the guys that were injured from last year that had trickled in a little bit early and so on and so forth. And it's just it was 95, 80, 98 degrees outside, and I'm not used to that kind of heat at all down in Dunedin. And you break for lunch and you go into the shade, and I'm just dying for a glass of water. And a lot of these other guys roll in there and they're having a hot bowl of soup. Like it's I am sweating head to toe, and then they're just having their soup. And it's a different group. Things move a little bit slower, and then when it's time to go, or there's that split second where you got to really be on. So it's kind of the game of baseball is long and wide and expansive, but it really, if you look at it, what really counts is maybe 5 minutes in total of action, right? Once a ball is hit or something is in play. So I love the sport. I love third base, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, for sure. So following up on that question, what's your thoughts about young athletes playing a variety of sports instead of just hockey?
I completely agree with that. I think the best kids that I grew up playing with were really good at soccer, lacrosse, later on some tennis. Kids that play hockey all year long, I just don't get it. I don't see how you're fresh. Your body physically needs a break. Your mind needs to do something different. And having a chance in the summer for 3.5 months to 4 months to do something a little bit different, and to go off and to meet a different coach, to meet a different group of kids, or maybe even stay with the same kids that you played your hockey with. They all go to the soccer team, but you're doing something different. And generally you're going to have a different coach. So you can pick up on little tips from different people, right? Like your hockey coach is one thing. You learn what you can from them, but there's a lot of things in soccer that apply to hockey. Tons of things that apply to both. So What can you pick up from your soccer coach that you can implement into your hockey game? There's lots to learn. Lacrosse the same way. There's so much in lacrosse that you can utilize in hockey in terms of strategy and positioning and footwork and and just the overall intensity of things. It all relates.
Yeah, 100%. So, you played in the NHL or you did play in the NHL for 15 years, and without a doubt have collected some funny stories along the way. Just
Oh,
share with my listeners maybe some of your favorite and maybe funniest stories of your playing days.
oh, geez.
Like, I don't
Uh,
know when you played in Philly if you're much of if you down many cheesesteaks, or I don't know.
oh, there's lots of cheesesteaks around Philly. It's actually quite funny because they have the two different groups kitty corner to one another. Um, the two big Philly cheesesteak
Yeah,
restaurants. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's no, there was none of that. There was just a lot of fun. There was just a lot of humor that went on. We had some guys that were pretty good artists. Daniel Lacroix was one, and he would get into the room, an hour before practice or before the other guys were showing up at practice, and he'd grab the chalkboard or the whiteboard and he'd get out all his markers and he would make cartoons. I mean, and they were hilarious, right? He'd have a really cool cartoon that when the guys came in, everyone laughed their heads off at. There's practical jokes of hiding fish in people's trucks and things like that. If they were being, some of the younger kids, they get a little ahead of themselves, and in a nice way, I think there was a couple of veterans that just slowed down their process a little bit, and with a small fish in the back of a brand new truck that had a great scent by the third day. No, there's a few things here and there. You spend a lot of time in airports. You spend a lot of time on the road. I don't know. There's always something going on. You can imagine you put 23 guys in the mix and you're basically together for 8 months of the year, 9 months of the year. There's lots of fun that goes on. So
Yeah,
it's a great environment to be part of.
yeah, 100%. So, over your illustrious career, you've managed to pick up some incredible accolades, as I mentioned at the start. Do you have a favorite one, or maybe even your proudest moment of your career?
And I don't really have a favorite one or anything like that. When I look back at playing, I was really lucky to play with a lot of the guys that I did. I mean, John LeClaire, I can't say enough about. We got him in a trade from Montreal, and we would have taken him. As it turned out, I think what they would have made they would have done it straight up for Recchi. But we also got Eric Desjardins, and we also got Gilbert Dion. I mean, Johnny he's just a wonderful guy. To this day, when I have a charity event every fall for Easter seals, and Johnny drives up from Philly every year, doesn't take a dime. All his appearance fee money goes back to the charity. You ask Johnny for a favor, he's just that guy. He's that really, really nice. He's a nice person. He's just a good dude. And same with Michael Renberg. He was over last year to help out. I had I got lucky with a lot of the guys that I had a chance to be around.
All right. So, I read some articles online and found out that you were a pretty superstitious guy. Is that true?
I had an issue with it. Yeah, I had an issue, and I think it was affecting. It was affecting my life a little bit.
All right. So,
Yeah.
what were some of those superstitions, and was there any reason why you used them?
Well, no, it was stupid, right? They have no bearing on the outcome of a game. But I'd have it in my head somehow. You put something in your head and it sticks there, or you had success with something or failure with something. So take, for instance, the score clock. The score clock used to drive me nuts. And if there was a whistle or a face off and it was at the 11-13 mark, if it ever said 13, I had a really bad feeling in my gut that we're going to get scored against. Like it had no bearing on anything, but I just had this in my head that so no, I needed to shake that off. It took about a year. There's a few in there that I it was just the way that I had some quirks and I had to work through them.
Yeah, all right. So, over the years, like now, for example, you've been asked a lot of questions. What's one that you think that you've been asked the most, and maybe one that you like to answer the most?
Well, your question about playing multiple sports and getting away from, I think that's a really important question. And I like to answer that question as much as I can. So I wish that was asked more. I think, again, to that point, I think, it's too much for you keep pounding a truck down a country road. Sooner or later, something's going to give. It needs a break. It needs a time to heal. It needs to head into the shop for a tune-up, and that's our bodies, right? We have to take care of our bodies in that sense. So that's one that I love to answer. What frequently asked, I don't know. I like to answer questions about about teammates that I enjoyed playing with. Keith Jones he's got the job as president of the Flyers. He was one of the funniest guys I played with. I roomed with him. He found me in the bathtub when I had a collapsed lung in Nashville, and he helped me out there. He was great. There's a pile of guys. Jeff Halpern's another really good person to know. He's good. He was a great player. He's now the assistant coach in Tampa, and I bet you he gets a shot somewhere down the road of being a head coach. I think he's really head coach material, and he'll do a wonderful job wherever he ends up. So, I hope that in a round way I answered your question.
Yeah, 100%. So, when you played in Philly, one of the I wouldn't say like main things, but you were known for your incredible line, as you mentioned earlier, with John LeClair and Michael Renberg. Where did that? Oh, yeah, you also had a nickname for that line, the Legion of Doom, widely known. So where did that nickname ever come from, and why do you think that you, John, and Michael clicked so well?
I don't know where that came from. It certainly didn't come from the dressing room. I think it might have come from a writer. Why it clicked? I think we all love the game in the same fashion. We thought the game should be played in a certain way, and you get three like-minded people in there on a line. Great things can happen. And then we just started pushing in practice. I think our practice habits were excellent. We really went all out every practice. We didn't have super long. It was never an hour and a half with our coaching staff, but we always felt that we were exhausted at the end of a practice skate. There was never anything super light, unless it was a playoff series or something in between. Those are a little bit different. But during the course of the regular season, when it was time to practice, we'd challenge ourselves. You have, there's some drills where you might have some, 3-on-2s in a row, back and forth with neutral zone work. And, how many goals can we get out of those three? How many, how can we challenge ourselves? It was good. We'd push each other, and that anytime that you work and you're having a great time in practice and you're working hard, it correlates to what goes on in the game. If you don't work hard at practice, it's really tough to turn on the switch and to let her rip in the games. For me, it didn't work that way. You got to keep the faucet running the whole time, and keep the habits the same way.
All right. So over the years, you've managed to suit up for 760 games, which means a lot of different arenas. So which out of those arenas had the most annoying fans, and which team had the loudest?
Well, that's each rink was a little bit. Well, I played in the Montreal Forum as well as the Bell Center. Playing in Montreal is special, right? Because there's some really educated fans up there. I remember I came out on the ice after the first period. We were up 2-1. We scored a couple of power play goals, and I had assisted on a couple of them, and I'm sitting on the bench getting ready for the puck to drop for the second start of the second period. And, someone in the stands right behind our bench, gets up and yells at me that I'm -1. And which was true, because I was on the ice for the goal against, and there's no plus for anybody that scores on a power play. Right. And it was it's one of those things where you just, you got no comeback for something like that, because it's absolutely true. But there's an educated fan that has the ability to say that. Playing in Chicago, the old Chicago Stadium, that was nuts. That was crazy. That was loud. I enjoyed coming back to Toronto, whether it's Maple Leaf Gardens or the Air Canada Center. Those were nice rinks to play in. It's always fun to kind of play at home. But when it was playoff time, there's no better place than Philadelphia. And whether you're at the Spectrum or the Wells Fargo Center or whatever they had the arena called at the time, I think it was First Union. The fans at Philadelphia they're great to play in front of. They have your back 100%. It's a great spot. You get off the ice, everything is all, you can just feel it. There's a real sense of pride in that area when it comes to playoff hockey for the Flyers.
All right, so now ever since the 90s, the hockey equipment game has certainly evolved, especially when it comes to sticks. I know you kind of have a strong opinion, well, not a strong opinion, but you have an opinion about this. What do you kind of think is going on in the hockey stick and equipment market compared to when you played? Like, with all the prices kind of going up and the manufacturing prices are going down. Well, I shouldn't say that, but profits are rising. So what do you think about that?
Listen, business is business, and it is what it is. Take care of your equipment. You get off the ice, wipe your blades. There's nothing wrong with used equipment either. A lot of times it's easier to step into a set of skates that someone's already been in for half a season. They're already broken in, they're ready to go. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you look at an adult stick being $400. That's a big chunk of change. It's the way it is. It's just, I don't know how to answer this question in some regard, because I'm sure that the manufacturers, there's the cost of doing things is risen. I'm sure that the expense of being in production is always going to keep rising, and they have a formula for why they have their pricing and the way that they do. You can also look at it the other way. Do you need the top of the line skates? If you're a kid learning, do you need to go out and to spend the $1,200 on the brand new set of CCMs? Is that necessary? So there's other ways to get around it, but hockey equipment is expensive. There's no question. There's no doubt about it. But I think the used market is something that we don't take advantage of as much as we could. I think I'd love to see more organizations have these. I wouldn't say, well, they're used, kind of a market one weekend on a Saturday or something where everybody brings the stuff that they wore from the year before and get it out there so that someone else can wear their equipment.
All right. So over the years, you've gone against some pretty tough defenders and goaltenders. Who would you say was the hardest to beat, and why?
Goaltenders, I would put up Dominik Hasek against anyone. He was good. He was really, really exceptional. Like, you got to understand, Buffalo, when he was in Buffalo, there wasn't much of a team in front of him. Yet he willed them to victories. It was crazy. He was that good. He was really challenging. You got Marty Brodeur, who's just solid. If you get by all those defensemen that they got in Jersey and get a chance to score, or get by Bobby Holik, or you're open for a split second when Bobby didn't catch up with you or something like that. Then you got Marty, and it was real tough to score on him. But I think overall, I think Dominik Hasek is Dominik for me was real tricky.
All right, so you've obviously played with some great players over the years, but if you could build a starting six that revolves around you, who would the players be and why? So I know that you're a center, so 2 wingers, 2 defensemen, a goalie, and doesn't matter, but if you want to throw a coach in there, feel free to do so.
But are you talking current?
Oh, I should say current, like any league, any time period, could be dead or alive.
Yeah.
No limits. If they
put John LeClair first and foremost. I think he would be he'd be right there. Joe Sakic. See, a lot of these guys could play winger or center. Mario Lemieux was probably the most talented guy I'd ever seen in my life. I don't think the highlights do him justice. He was such a step above everybody else when it came to talent. It was incredible. You know, he was terrific. Ray Bork. Ray Bork is, you just can't say enough about the guy. He's just an incredible player. I'm trying to fit in a couple of you know, I like Brett Burns.
Wow.
I mean, I know you're talking about an all, you know, right now. I think Brett Burns is he's getting a lot of accolades, but for his play, but he does it all for Carolina. He's the big cog in the wheel down there in my eyes. I think he's wonderful. I don't know. You got I mean, the list is endless, right? It's impossible to pick. I got Rennie. You got Nathan McKinnon. You got Sidney Crosby. You got Al McInnes. Dom and net. I don't know. Roger Nielsen was one of my, he's my favorite coach. I really liked playing under Roger Nielsen. I thought he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. That's a real hard question to answer because there's only so many slots, and I've got so many guys that you want to speak about.
All right, so
Mark Messier. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So, as some of my listeners know, you played with the Toronto Maple Leafs for a year, and in the past 19 years, they've been sort of stuck in a playoff slump almost, only getting past the first round once, which was this year, when they lost to in the second round they lost to the Panthers in 5 games. Yeah. So, what do you think that the Leafs have to do in the future to become a playoff contender again? You know, maybe they have to do something at the front office, or maybe a player needs to be traded, or players, or something needs to happen on the coaching bench. What do you think from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm not in the dressing room. I'm not around there all the time, so it's real tricky to answer that one. But when things, it looks like they got enough firepower.
Yeah, just outside
to do something. But when it just seems like the heart isn't there, or the fire in the belly isn't there at times. And when that's the case, then I think you got to shake up the room. And maybe find a different source of inspiration within the room. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's that bonded group. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. They've put together that team in a fashion that was risky, and they're stuck with the situation right now. They do really well in the regular season, that's for sure. No questions asked. But when it's time to get over that hump, there's that extra element of believing in your teammates and having a tight knit group, and having people stand up in the room and really send a message from the heart. That's a big element of all this. And again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what's being said, what isn't, but who knows what they're going to do. That's luckily not a decision I have to make.
Yeah. All right. So when you were growing up, who was a player that you idolized, and why? Or who was your favorite player growing up?
Growing up, it was Mark Messier.
Mark Messier, yeah, throwing back. Yeah. Any reason for that? Just the leadership, or?
I think he did it all, right? He scored, he hit, he was fast. He could shoot off his back leg. I mean, I remember getting, for my 16th birthday, I got an orange Sherwood from John McCauley. He used to run the NHL refereeing. I played with his son Wes, who now refs in the league, Wes McCauley.
Yes.
And I got that for my 16th birthday, and I got a chance to meet Mark at the Hockey News Awards. So that was pretty thrilling. I got, for my birthday, I also got standing room only tickets at Maple Leaf Gardens when the Oilers came to town. So that was another cool thing. So he was my guy. He was my guy growing up.
All right, so rounding off, as you mentioned earlier, I know that you're part of a charity called Easter Seals Ontario. Could you
Yeah.
just tell us a little bit about what they do there and how they're helping the world, basically?
Well, there's a lot of kids that are not dealt, a fair hand, and whether they're in wheelchairs, whether they're requiring, 24-hour supervision, constant care. There's a multitude of medical needs that they need. There's ways to help them out. There's ways to help out their families, and whether it's by making a van wheelchair accessible, or putting a ramp in at a house, or fixing up the bathroom so that it can be used by someone in a chair or walker. These are all basic things that Easter Seals does. The biggest thing that the Easter Seals kids love, is to go to camp, and going to camp requires a lot of care. Right there's two in Ontario that the kids head off to, and we put a lot of money towards that. The kids get to camp. They're people. They are independent. They grow their friendships with other campers grow. They try new activities. They do everything under the moon. And it's all set up there at these wonderful camps, and they come away with a great experience, and lifetime of memories from it. And the parents and the other siblings also have there's a break there, right? There's a time where it's a different dynamic at home. So I think everyone benefits from the camps, that's for sure. That's where Easter Seals is about. And our little charity started out, I think the first year we made I think we grossed $80,000, and now we're well over 3.5 million, or 3.7, something like
Whoa.
that. So yeah, we've started to really take off, and we just don't run it and spend a lot of money doing it either. We run it at about an 80% return rate. So every dollar that we raise, 80 cents goes directly to Easter Seals. So we're quite proud of that number.
All right, love it. So that does it for me. I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
I had a great time. Very nice to see you.